Hi everyone, it's David from Die-Cut Adhesive. Just thought I'd stop by today to share a couple of new techniques with you. Hopefully something that might inspire you to maybe try something a bit different with your dies. It's all about getting more mileage from your existing dies and using them in new and different ways. And today what we're going to do is with using our sheet of Stick-It double-sided adhesive. Remember this product's designed specifically for die cutting. In conjunction with some deco foil and some ultrafine glitters. You see these come in an assortment of different colours. We've just got 4 different ones here. But what we're going to do is use Stick-It and our die cut designs on a piece of fabric. This is just a regular piece of plain cotton fabric. I've also got some pieces of artist canvas that we can use to apply our die cut design onto and then incorporate it into our projects. So once you've embellished it, you end up with something like this. Obviously fray the corners. You've then got a foil heart in this case, and you can imagine that either stitched onto the front of a card or stuck onto a like a matted panel on the front of a card. It's a fantastic way of doing something a little bit different. It's very easy to do, and I'll show you how we do all of that now. First things first, obviously we need to decide what die we're using, and on this occasion I'm going to use the heart design from the Tim Holtz it's called, what is it called? It's called Scribbles and Splat collection of dies. It's this heart die design here. The reason I'm using this one is just to show you really it's quite an intricate design, so I don't want you to sort of shy away from using any of your more intricate dies with this technique, because it is quite easy to do, as you'll see. Some of you may have seen it before. What we're going to do here is basically just use a die cut design of purely the adhesive layer to apply that onto our material and then embellish it. So I'll just go away, cut everything down to the right size, and I'll be back with you in just a second. Okay, so now I've cut my piece of Stick-It to size. Those of you who've used our Stick-It adhesive sheet before will know that there's a convenient crackback area that runs the whole length of the full sheet of Stick-It. And one of the tips I've got for you when you're using this particular technique is the first thing you want to do is to just mark the crackback area on the sheet with a marker pen, just like that. And all we're doing here is we're just making the crackback area easier to see once we've die cut the design, because once you've die cut it, the crackback, whilst it's still sort of quite evident on this whole sheet, becomes quite difficult to see. So you don't have to do this, just makes it a little bit easier further out. What we're then going to do is basically position the die in such a way as, in fact I'll turn it that way so you can see it easier, so as just a minimal amount of the design actually crosses over the crackback area. And the reason for this is that once we've die cut the design, we don't really want to be handling the piece too much, because the problem can be that if the more you handle it, the more likely you are to touch the adhesive. The adhesive will basically stick to the first thing it comes to when you're removing it from the liner. If that happens to be your finger, you're obviously going to end up with a blank spot on your design. So the whole key here is not to handle the piece any more than necessary to avoid removing any of the adhesive inadvertently. So we're basically going to position the die in such a way that the crackback area only applies to a small area of the design as possible. It'll become a bit more apparent as we go through the technique. And what I'm going to do is basically cut through this side so I can still see where the crackback area is, but I want to basically cut through the design this way, as it then makes it easier to remove from the die without leaving the adhesive in the die. So I'll just go ahead and cut that now, and I'll be right back. Those of you that have used Stick-It before will know that you don't need to do anything different. You don't have to treat Stick-It any differently when you die cut, because it's so thin. So we've basically got our design here. I'm just going to grab my pokey tool and just remove the die cut from the design, taking care not to allow any of the release liner to just sort of flake away, because at this point you can see how delicate the design is. It's quite flimsy, because it's just the adhesive sheet that we've die cut. There's no cardstock involved here, it's just a double-sided adhesive sheet. So we'll just get a few of these little waste pieces out of the way, because we don't want those interfering with the design when we peel it apart. So if I just clear up here, and for this one we'll use a piece of canvas, like so. And all I'm going to do here is very carefully, you can see here now where the crackback area is. I don't know if you can just see where that's sort of easily peeling apart. So what I'm going to do is basically remove the backing paper, which is this piece in my left hand that I'm touching with my thumb. I can touch that because it's just the silicone release paper. What I don't want to do is put my finger on any of the area in my right hand, because that's just bare adhesive, and as I mentioned before, as soon as that touches something, whatever it happens to be, it will come off the release liner and you'll end up losing the adhesive from the design. So what we're basically going to do now is transfer this die cut design onto the piece of canvas, and you need to do that very carefully by just basically offering up the design. We've stuck down the first piece like so. I'll just remove that little piece that I was holding on to where the crackback area is. So we'll just get that out of the way there. And then if you remember, one of the other tips that I've got for you is to use a piece of stick-it silicone release paper that you've removed from another piece. As the beauty of that is that if you use this to try and hold on to the adhesive part of the design, the adhesive isn't going to stick to it, because this is just a silicone release paper. This is the shiny paper that you peel away from stick-it when you apply it to cardboard, or in this case it's just the liner that's protecting the adhesive. So as I grab the design here, I can use the silicone release paper to just basically assist with the process of holding the design without then subsequently touching it with my fingers. So that's all the release paper now that's been removed from the design, and what I've got to do now is try and, if I lift this up so you can see, I've just obviously now got to try and apply a little bit of pressure here to make sure that the design lays flat in its proper position. Hopefully you can see this. It's a bit tricky to do this with it in mid-air, but you can see I've managed to sort of use that silicone piece of the piece of silicone release paper to just basically help position the design so that it goes onto the material like that. So that's now all on there and in place. What I like to do here is either brayer the design down so it's really nice and stuck down to the fabric, or another way that you can do this really quite easily is to cheat a bit and just basically use your die cutting machine to run it back through, as the pressure helps stick the adhesive down lovely and flat onto your fabric. So you can see here we've got our design still protected by the silicone release paper. All we need to do now is remove that, and then we're ready to embellish it. So I'll move that out of the way. I think for this one what I'm going to do is use a piece of foil. So first of all we need to just expose the design, and all I'm going to do with my pokey tool is just hold it up to the camera here. What I'm going to do is just scratch it away from the surface of the design like that, and then hopefully as I remove the release paper you should be able to see, if I twist it into the light in a certain way, that we've basically transferred the design onto there. Can you see that? Just try and catch the light in a certain way. The design is basically now imprinted onto the fabric. You wouldn't really be able to see it if it were just laying flat, but you get the idea. So the design is now transferred onto our fabric, and because it's just the adhesive, there's no dimension to it. It's lovely and smooth. So what I'm going to do now is just cut a piece of foil, and then we'll apply that to the design. For this one, I've chosen a nice piece of, this is actually satin teal foil. It's a really nice product actually. I've been using this for quite a lot of projects. And all you're going to do is basically lay that over the adhesive, and if I just sort of roll that on with a brayer, you'll be able to see the pattern becomes a little bit more noticeable. Again, like I did before, you can either continue to bray it or maybe use an embossing tool just to sort of make sure that the foil is nicely stuck down to the adhesive, because remember, this is the fabric has got a little bit of weave to it, so we want a nice covering of foil on the adhesive. So all I'm going to do again is just basically run this back through our big shot machine. And what I normally do, because these plates have been fairly well cut with, I'm actually just laying it down on a nice smooth platform, run it through the machine. That way we're not going to get any nasty imprints on the design from the cutting plates. So that's now all pressed into place, and now it's just literally a question of peeling away the foil, and look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So again, as I say, because we've just applied the adhesive to this, there's no dimension to it. It's just a like a stamped impression of your die. And then obviously what you do is just to fray the edge a little bit, as I showed you on my other sample, just to then basically stick that onto a card, or you could stitch it onto a piece of card. You can also do other things. Brenda and her sister the other day made this fabulous bag, just a plain Hessian shopping bag, and they've cut a number of panels. You see in this one they've used an ultrafine glitter, this glitter foil, and basically used a few different designs, and then stitched them onto the bag. It's a great way of just sort of creating something on your own, you know, a design original. So that's the technique. I hope you found that useful, and that you enjoyed it, but I guess more importantly, hopefully that you now feel inspired to maybe try a few new techniques with your stick it adhesive, and incorporating it with pieces of fabric. So thanks for your time, thanks for watching. If you have any queries, obviously feel free, drop us an email. We're more than happy to answer any queries about any products that we sell, and we'd like to hear from you. So thanks again, take care, bye bye.